All right, so since this is a separate meeting, I will read the electronic disclosure. This meeting is being recorded. The meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Enosburg Falls is being conducted electronically in order to assure the safety of all attendees and to maintain compliance with Governor Scott's executive order per H 681 signed into law March 30th, 2020. Section 6, there's a temporary suspension of designated physical meeting location requirements of Vermont's open meeting law, VSA Section 312A1. In order to ensure that all attendees can hear clearly, your audio may be muted. When you wish to speak, you can raise your hand in the participant list or by submitting a chat request. If you called in, you can press *9. Once acknowledged by the chair, please clearly state your name and proceed with your question or comment. Please remember that when unmuted, all participants can hear any sounds in your environment. Again, this meeting is being recorded. All right, we'll do another roll call quick. Cindy?
Here.
Uh, Heather?
Here.
Leonard?
Here.
Jason?
Here.
All right, all board members are in attendance. First thing on the agenda is modifications or changes. Does anybody have any modifications or changes to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to public comment. There does not appear to be anybody from the public here tonight. So we'll move on to review and approval of the minutes, November 10, 2020. Did everybody get a chance to look those over?
I motion to accept the minutes.
Okay,
I'll second that.
Cindy with the first, Leonard with the second. All those in favor of accepting the minutes from November 10th, say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. All right, it's unanimous. Up next, we have manager's report. What do you got for us tonight, John?
All right. I know everyone's tired. I'll try and get through this quickly. I do have a number of different things I just want to get the board up to date with, and then we're pretty much out of here. So first, I want to make the board aware that I submitted a letter of support to the Town Recreation Committee for a grant application that they were interested in applying for to AARP, that's American Association of Retired Peoples. So they're going to do some community, my understanding, some like murals, things like that around the community that can bring in some citizen participation and hopefully maybe improve some of the areas within the community with some artwork. Unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of time. I got very short notice on this, so I had to, make the decision without checking with the trustees about it. So I decided to go ahead and submit the application. I hope that's okay with the board, but I wanted to keep you informed of that. And I'm happy to discuss it if anybody wants to discuss anything or you're not happy that I did that. Is everybody okay with it?
Yeah. John, I submitted my own letter of support through LEAPS and the Vermont Youth Project as well. So I saw the grant application.
Okay, great.
And it was like a really quick turnaround. They found out about it, they had a week, I think, or something, and a volunteer, non-community member volunteer wrote the majority of the proposal.
Yeah.
It was really great.
Yeah, good. So hopefully they have some success with that.
Mm-hmm.
Next item, we had a breakdown with our large Public Works Department plow truck. Happened at a pretty bad time as we're right on the cusp of winter right now, and we have had a few snowstorms. We've been working around that, just using the two smaller trucks and getting away with it because we haven't had a ton of snow. We've only had like a couple inches at a time, but we really need that large plow truck for when we get significant storms. We got to have it. So a judgment call had to be made. Unfortunately, the repairs to the engine of that vehicle were significant. Myself, Sam Valancourt, Kenny LaPlante, our foreman for the Public Works Department, and Gary Denton, our Director of Public Works, all discussed this issue multiple times over about a 10-day period or so. And bottom line was there was not a way around this. We were going to have to invest the money because we didn't have time, given where we are in the year, to try and find another option or buy another truck or something like that. we had to get this truck running and operating and in good shape to get us through the season. So a call had to be made. We decided to make it, and we did have Clark's Truck Repair invest $18,000 in the vehicle in order to get it safe and operating back on the road again. So that's, more than what I have as village manager, as authority to give approval to an amount made. But, several of our staff members did talk about this. We were all in agreement after, wringing our hands over it for about 10 days or so, that this unfortunately was the best option we had. So we did have Clark's make the repairs, and we're asking for the board to retroactively approve those expenses to repair the truck.
Yeah, and if I could touch in on that. Well said, John. But yeah, it had some severe engine damage, and it is really expensive. But being it's almost December now, snow is coming, so we had to get something moving. So yeah, I guess what we'll have to do is retroactively approve an expense and authorize John to sign on that. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to retroactivate on that.
First, do I have a second?
I second.
Cindy with a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Matt, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add for the board's edification that the only silver lining in this is that not only is the truck repaired and back and in service, it came in at $18,044 and some change, very close to what they estimated. We got the preliminary invoice today. The head of the highway department is reviewing it for accuracy now. And we did have some potential surpluses in the general fund that will cover the cost of this. So we are not going to operate a deficit as a result of this unexpected expenditure.
Perfect.
Nice.
All right, great. Thank you, Matt. And thank you, board, for retroactively approving that expense. Hopefully we don't have any more problems this season with that truck. It should be in good shape now through the rest of the season at least, but thank you very much. A quick update on COVID-19. People have probably heard, as expected, Governor Scott did extend the state of emergency for Vermont. Previously, it was November 15th. Governor Scott has extended that until December 15th. Positive cases continue to rise throughout the state. Daily numbers in November have topped even what we were experiencing back in April and May of this year. So, and actually we've had I think 2 or 3 days in November now where we broke the previous records for number of positive cases in one day that had been set back in the spring. So it's definitely, it's coming back with a vengeance. Hopefully, in Vermont, we can keep it contained. Our numbers nationally are still very low compared to what you see in some other states across the country. I mean, there's some states, they're seeing 15,000 new cases a day. In Vermont here, we're looking at, we've been averaging around like 80 to 100 new cases a day, I'd say, for the past 2 to 3 weeks, which for us is bad. This is like the highest that we've had it. But from a national perspective, it's still very good, but obviously it's concerning that the numbers are rising. So I just urge everybody to, use common sense, take care, be careful out there, do what you have to do, but, don't be silly. And if you have any questions about, whether you should or should not be doing anything, whether it's indoors or outdoors, I'd urge you to check the state's COVID-19 website. They're constantly giving updates and new information on there every day. So if you have any questions, I just urge anyone to take a look at that website. Also, as a result of the activities concerning COVID-19, Enosburg Business Association has decided to cancel the in-person holiday tree lighting ceremony and the holiday parade this year. That's sad news. I didn't know if you guys had heard that or not, but I got an email on that last week. So unfortunately, those two events are not going to happen. Shauna Lovelet has told me that they're going to try and see if they can do something virtually. I don't know what they can do, on that front, but she said they're going to look into it and see if they go
Sorry,
ahead,
John.
Heather.
They posted on Facebook that they're going to do a Facebook Live. So they're going to have somebody like with their phone recording when they turn on the lights.
Okay.
Yeah, 6:15, I think, on Saturday.
Okay, so they got that worked out now.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Heather. So, so there you go, 6:15 on Saturday. If anybody's interested in attending that virtually, looks like they've got that worked out with EBA. Let's see. Then just a reminder on the Vital Village Local Concerns Meeting. We've set this up actually as a special meeting of the Board of Trustees, just in case a majority of you attend the meeting. Legally, we have to also call that a Board of Trustee meeting anytime there's, a majority of the board in attendance at a meeting where you may be discussing, village business. Then technically it has to be warned as a board meeting, and we've taken care of that. But that will be on December 3rd at 6:30 p.m. So if you guys or any of you guys can make that, that'd be good. I'm sure people would like to hear, a turnout from at least some of the Board of Trustees on that and hear what any of your thoughts are about the project. And then the last thing is concerning the Doughboy statue. I got a communication from Dan Cunningham of the American Legion that the Doughboy statue has been removed now. I think it was removed on last Friday. It will be gone from Lincoln Park through the winter time. It's being worked on by a company called East Coast Copper at their facilities in Colchester, Vermont. And so the Legion is going to have that statue repaired, refurbished, looking, as near to new as East Coast Copper can get it. And then the Legion intends to do a rededication ceremony of the statue sometime in spring 2021. So just thought I'd make you guys aware of that as well. Plus, if you noticed it was gone from the park, you might wonder what was going on, if someone had stolen it or something. We don't want people thinking that. So, and that is it for manager's report.
Okay, thank you, John. All right, does anybody have any other business tonight? Cindy?
Well, two things, actually. I don't know why I didn't do this at our last meeting, but I'd like to make a motion to join the CUD because there's really no risk to us to do that.
I would second that.
Okay. Yeah, if everyone's had a chance to digest all the information that we got, hopefully we have, we can definitely vote. Cindy's got first.
Yeah, we had, at our last meeting, we had actually talked about having on the December 8th board agenda. I had it scheduled for the December 8th board agenda, but
I don't think we really need to discuss it again.
Decision. We can vote on it. Cindy's got a first, Heather's got a second. All those in favor of joining the CUD say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. All right, cool.
okay, so
That's quick.
A little unprepared, didn't know you were going to do that, but I remember, I don't have it in front of me, but there was a formal motion that had been provided to the board from Sean Coleman of the CUD. And I don't remember all the details of that resolution to join it, but I do remember within there was a part of it where, oh, you got it right there, Matt. Okay, great, thank you. Where it also asks for a representative to be designated by the select, or not the select board, the board of trustees.
Do you have any volunteers to be that designee?
I'll do it.
Oh, okay.
Cindy, you want to do it?
Sure.
Okay, does the board feel comfortable appointing Cindy as our representative for the CUD?
Yes.
yes,
All right,
And we need alternates.
It does have spaces for 2 alternates.
It's
Probably
optional.
don't, yeah, probably don't need to do that.
Bear in mind also that Sean Kayo is the representative for the town of Enosburg. And perhaps he could act as an alternate for the village if someone wanted to ask him if he was willing to do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
okay.
Does somebody have to read this or it just gets signed?
Probably, I mean, you made the motion. Sounds like you've appointed the representative and an alternate in Sean Kayo. So if we got a second to that, and then just take the vote, and needs to be signed by the chair and the clerk, and then we can send it in to Sean Coleman.
Yep, I'll stop in sometime in the near future and sign that.
Yeah, perhaps if we can just get a verbal consensus now that the board has seen the resolution, that's what your intent was with the motion, was to adopt this resolution.
Yep, that's the one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, are we all set on that?
Yeah.
mhm,
And there was one more thing. Are we done with this?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. With the new restrictions and whatnot and other things that are closing down, would this be an opportunity, which I'm not really sure why they didn't do before, but for the village staff to maybe start working remotely?
Hmm.
I mean, is there any reason why they actually have to go to the physical building? They all work on computers.
Yeah, well, I will chime in on that, Cindy. We actually have had discussions within our staff about this. And certainly if any of our staff wants to work from home, we can attempt to try and set something up to do that. It's a little bit difficult though, because the expectation in the community, especially around the electric department, is that they are going to be able to communicate with us during normal working hours for a wide variety of reasons. They need to work out payment options on their bills. We have been accepting payments on appointments, and we have some customers that, although it's a little hard to believe, are telling us they have no other options except to pay with cash to us. And so they will come down and actually hand employees money. And then we're at least getting the payment from them.
Well, we have a
And-
Dropbox now.
We do have a Dropbox, yeah. Some of our customers still want to hand the money though to somebody, and as long as we're doing all of the other cleaning that is required under the COVID-19 recovery plan that, remember, you guys adopted back in, I think it was either June or July. I think we're okay. We're continuing to meet the mandates of the state under that. But we've also told our employees in the office that, you know, if you're not comfortable, we can try and set up arrangements for you to work from home. The other challenge we have is that some of us work with a wide variety of organizations, probably more than you as the Board of Trustees fully appreciate in our administrative capacities and duties. And a lot of our materials that we have are in the office here, in our files, on our computers here. And it's just a lot easier to be able to access those things, you know, quickly and efficiently when we have to do it. When, for example, we've got someone from the state that is asking us questions on a particular, you know, grant application or something that we may have in, or I'm in meetings with the Northeast Public Power Association Board of Directors, and I've got files related to that organization that I need to refer to in those board meetings, which they continue to meet too, and they're meeting remotely, of course. Nobody's traveling around New England at this point, but we are still meeting remotely and discussing issues at that level as well. Outside of the office, it would really be impossible for our employees to do their jobs, you know, from home, because they're all pretty physical jobs. Our wastewater treatment guys got to be in the wastewater plant to do
I
their
just
jobs.
meant the people in the office.
Yeah.
I understand that the people in the field have to be in the field.
Yeah. Yeah. So
All right, it's just
I,
a question. So.
yeah, it's good thought, and it is something that staff has talked about at least a couple different times. And, you know, we've told everybody in the office, if, you know, if you feel more comfortable working from home, we can set something up for you to do that. So far, everybody said they'd actually prefer to come into the office as long as, you know, the building continues to remain closed to the public, and you know, we continue our cleaning regimen, and which has to be done several times a day in order to keep the office open even for employees here. And but it's a good thought you have. But
Okay.
before you got too far down that, I thought I'd fill you in on, you know, some of the other things surrounding that issue.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Okay, does anybody else have anything for tonight? All right, hearing no more other business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Jason,
I'll
do
sec-
I have a second?
A second.
Cindy with the second. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving,
Happy
everybody.
Thanksgiving,
Happy
everybody.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, I need to read an electronic meeting disclosure. This meeting is being recorded. The meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Enosburg Falls is being conducted electronically in order to ensure the safety of all attendees and to maintain compliance with Governor Scott's executive order. Per H 681 signed into law March 30th, 2020, Section 6, there's a temporary suspension of designated physical meeting location requirements of Vermont's open meeting law, VSA Section 312A1. In order to ensure that all attendees can hear clearly, your audio may be muted. When you wish to speak, you can raise your hand in the participant list or by submitting a chat request, or if you called in by pressing *9. Once acknowledged by the chair, please clearly state your name and then proceed with your question or comment. Please remember that when unmuted, all participants can hear any sounds in your environment. Again, this meeting is being recorded. So first up on the agenda, we have modifications or changes. Is there any additions or changes to tonight's agenda?
Maybe Sam, it might be good to note just for the public record that this is a joint meeting between the Village of Enosburg Falls Board of Trustees and the Town of Enosburg Select Board.
Yep. So we'll be doing this kind of in 3 different parts. We'll have a joint meeting, and then we need to go into executive with both boards, and then the village is going to have its regular meeting after executive. But yeah. So if there's no modifications or changes, we'll head into public comment. Is there anybody here from the public that wishes to speak?
I'm seeing no hands raised.
All right, I don't see any hands either. So we'll move on to Enosburg Historical Society. We have a representative from the Historical Society here tonight.
Yeah, right here.
Evening.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, hi. I wrote things down for efficiency so we can just get through it, and you can, if you have questions at the end, I hope I cover everything. So obviously, thank you for having us. I'm the new president of the Enosburg Historical Society. I was elected a year ago and re-elected a month ago. So as you know, the society is dedicated to preserving, protecting, and promoting the history of Enosburg. Right now, we have 119 members. 50 are lifetime members, so they paid a premium a while ago and they don't pay dues anymore. So we have 69 dues paying members. They pay $10 a year for a total of 690 dollars. Sorry. So, and I invite all of you folks who are dedicated to Enosburg to join us also. So as many of you know, and some don't know, the society leases both the freight depot, caboose, and Abe's cabin from the village of Enosburg Falls for $1. Since 1977, the society has renovated, improved, and or maintained all 3 buildings with the help of tens of thousands of dollars in grants, fundraising, and hundreds of hours of volunteer manpower. In 2015, for example, the society invested over $9,000 into Abe's cabin, which is right there on Lincoln Park. And we also received $1,000 from an article at town meeting, when it gets voted in. Tonight, though, I specifically want to talk about the freight depot, which houses the Enosburg Historical Society Museum. And Matt's going to put some pictures on for us. So the depot, these are the old pictures first. The depot was built by the Central Vermont Railroad in 1871, 2 years after the railroad was built, to carry passengers and freight from St. Albans to Richford. So the freight depot is right in the middle there, the 3rd building from the left. That's the stockyard and the freight depot. And across the street was the passenger depot, which is the Legion Hall, if you don't know that. So for a time, there were 6 trains a day, 3 passenger trains, a way freight and all that carried groceries, a milk freight train at noon, and a through freight from St. Albans all the way to Richford that carried grain and materials to the Canadian Pacific. All freight was shipped by rail until about 1930, when trucks became more popular as a method of transport. So the building looks very much like that today. So per the State Historic Registry, and we are eligible for the National Historic Registry too, the depot is a well-preserved example of a 1.5-story, 3x2 bay, gable roof, wood frame railroad depot, freight depot. Because it is so little altered, the Central Vermont Railway Freight Depot in Enosburg Falls stands as one of the best representatives of the era. It displays open eaves, exposed rafters, plain cornice, and prominent overhang with large eaves, front-loading platform entrances with vertical board doors, a multi-pane transom on the north trackside elevation, so that would be the window above the door. The South Street displays a pair of loading bays without platforms, a panel 2x2, a panel door, 2x2 windows, and an exterior and a brick chimney are also on the west elevation. So the freight depot is both a symbol and a local landmark located in the designated village center next to a busy hardware store, as you know, Ace Hardware, the American Legion, a former passenger depot, and across the street from the historic Enosburg Opera House and the newly renovated Quincy House. So pictures 1, Matt, 2, and 3, just in 4, just kind of show that's what it looks like from the end. A little bit further back from Ace Hardware looking at it. And that's a view from across the street. So for much of its life, the Enosburg Historical Society Museum was above the town clerk's office on Main Street. Around 1990, well after papers were signed to secure the freight depot, and in anticipation of the subsequent move of the museum to the freight depot, the society bought 300 feet of railroad tracks from the CV Railroad when the tracks were being removed. The Enosburg Historical Society secured the caboose. Then they had students from the vocational center build partitions inside the depot, making it 3 rooms instead of 1 large room. Plus, we did necessary repairs and renovations. The society applied for and received a grant to install a handicap accessible bathroom. And we also have, the ramps going in. And the Enosburg Society was ready to move into the depot and did so on that fateful day of 9/11/2001. The society has kept the building in good repair, kept it heated, water on or water off, depending on the season, and insured. Plus, we installed an alarm system. Last year, shortly after coming on board, I noticed that the roof on the depot seemed to be failing. So I had a contractor come in and take a look. You can show some pictures 5, 6, 7, and 8, Matt. So shingles on the corners of the eaves, they're shot. That's, as you can see, there's 2 layers of shingles on there. And I'll talk more about that. As you can see, it doesn't look very good. And that's the sagging of those big eaves. Okay, let me go here. So both north and south sides are in need of repair. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Let's find out where I am here. Okay, on pictures 16, 17, and 18, it's views from the attic. And you'll see there's not holes. We're getting there. I guess lots of pictures for you. Okay, so you'll see knot holes with the shingles showing. And there's also big holes between the boards. And holes of any kind, the contractor said, there's between 2 boards. There'll be no shingle warranty. It'll void the shingle warranty if there's any holes like that. So we have an estimate. Well, let me continue on here. So the roof surface needs to be stripped of the 2 layers of asphalt shingles. Roof supports need to be assessed, but they seem to be in good shape. The large eaves need to be repaired after the roof shingles are off. Plywood needs to be installed on the roof and new asphalt shingles applied. The estimate from Barnard Roofing came in at $41,000. In early October, I applied for a matching grant from the Vermont Department of Historic Preservation for half of it, $20,000. If we are awarded the grant in December, we will know in December. At that time, we would need 2 more estimates, and we would plan to do some more fundraising. And also we would consider talking to the building trades class again to see if we can use their help to lower the cost. We would have 2 years to get the project done. Right now, the society has only $17,000 in the building maintenance fund. We have a checking account for ongoing repairs too, but clearly we would have nothing if we tried to match that grant, but I still did apply for it. And I've talked to them and that's okay. So without repair to the roof, serious failure and leakage of rainwater or snowmelt are sure to occur and further damage the structure and its contents. The structural supports for the open eaves also need to be repaired or replaced so that the roof can be completed because they are rotting and sagging. The historic landmark, the repair project is essential in order to protect Enosburg's antiques and artifacts, as well as remain a historic landmark for future generations to enjoy. We want to continue to conserve, protect, and preserve important historic and archaeological items significant to the history of Enosburg, the state of Vermont, and the Central Vermont Railway. The community supports the project as demonstrated by recent resurgence of interest in all things historic, such as the recently upgraded Doughboy Statue and fence on the park, where 36 of our own members donated $3,500 to the Doughboy project. And that was a quarter of the amount needed to replace the fence around the statue. 10 days ago, I had Preservation Trust come up here. I met with consultant Alex Tolstoy about helping us create a maintenance plan, which I could not find, and nobody seems to think we have one. So in his cursory visit, Alex noted that the freight depot appears to be in good shape in all ways except for the roof. So, you know, we don't want to have any more surprises. So I'm still making, contacting them. I'm getting a little matching grant for $500, or I think it's $500, to have them come and help us do a written maintenance plan, like I said, so we don't have any more surprises. And as I also said, I am new to this. So whether or not we receive the grant, we would appreciate you folks budgeting funds for half of this one-time repair cost when you develop your budgets, town and village budgets. It's our understanding that you do this for other buildings you own, such as the Opera House. So that's pretty much it. I went as fast as I could, and I think it's pretty thorough, but if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. I don't know everything, far from it.
How much are you asking for, Cindy?
20. It would be nice because it depends. We'll know if we're going to get the grant in December. If we don't get the grant, it's going to be $40,000, or hopefully a little bit less if we finagle and get more estimates and try to get the school involved. But we don't have the money. If it's $38,000, we have 17. So it looks like we're gonna, now if we get the grant and we're lucky enough, they have called and asked me questions. They have been looking at us. It would cost $20,000. We don't really have, if we put 20,000 in, take some money out of our checking account to make the 20, the historical society will be finished. We'll be broke, we'll be bankrupt. So we would, want to do fundraising. I mean, we do fundraising now. Well, in the pandemic, we don't do as much. We had card parties, ham dinners, that kind of thing. But I can see that we really haven't been doing the fundraising in the past, apparently, because we had over $30,000 in a maintenance fund, and it's just been going down. So I think we need to change that plan to always replenishing the maintenance. But like I said, I'm new. This is what I was handed, and we definitely need some help to save the building. We just don't have the money. So as much as people are willing to help us, with it, we are still going to have to take care of all of the buildings. Like we had the caboose painted, we had the caboose lettered. It all takes money. The heat, we have to have the front room heated with all the papers in it. You can't just let the paper sit there in the cold and then damp. So the front room is heated with a monitor, and, we pay for the insurance, and we just had the alarm people come because that wasn't working right. It's just, kind of ongoing. And as you can see, the dues are only $690. So that's gone back into the building. I mean, we certainly aren't ahead of the game with money. So you would have to discuss that between your, two bodies.
Polly, did you have a question?
So Cindy, so you applied for the grant. Did you apply for the grant as the Historical Society? And if you got the grant, you're asking the municipality to cover the other half?
As much as you can cover. I guess we might need up to 20, because if we don't get the grant, we're really not going to have enough money to do the project. So I guess it's between 20 and maybe we'll get the grant, and we will definitely put some of our maintenance money in, but any way you can help. I mean, I can't say because I don't know if we're going to get the grant or not, and we haven't got the second set of estimates. So the Barnard said right now building supplies are really outrageous. Like, I guess if you were to call up Sticks and Stuff and ask how much the plywood cost, get an estimate on plywood, and the plywood for this job was $7,000 alone, just the plywood. They'll only hold your estimate one day, because 2 days later it's going to be 25% more. So it's a really tough time to be looking at a building project. Maybe things will moderate over time as we get on the other side of the pandemic, hopefully. So I guess I would say 20 on the high side. And if we get the grant, like I said, the 17 would wipe out our building fund completely. So we really wouldn't want to completely wipe ourselves out, because we have other buildings in the caboose, plus other miscellaneous stuff to do on the freight depot. So we just don't want to be wiped out. I think you've got the numbers right.
How do we sign up to say something?
Pardon?
How can I sign up to say something?
Raise your hand.
How do I raise my hand? Okay. Yeah. Can I go now?
Sure.
I think there's a larger problem here. Not a larger problem, but a larger opportunity. I've been very proud of playing a marginal role in the Enosburg initiative. And how the town looks, how the village looks after the few years that it's been going, makes me much prouder of where I live. I feel better when I go to town, and I am happy to show visitors who haven't been here what a nice place I live. We in the Historical Society, 36 of the 100 some odd members came up with $3,500 to cover roughly a quarter of the cost of the fence. And I think that's the fence for the Doughboy. And there's more fundraising going on for the repairs to the statue itself. The issue that I have, the point I have, is that if our future of our town is to be as attractive and successful as we'd like it to be, we, the taxpayers, and you, our representatives, should, I think, have a responsibility for allocating funds for the maintenance and improvement of what we have to offer to make our town attractive and to others, and that ought to be a long-term commitment at a level that we as taxpayers agree to. This is one example. We could fight this one out. There's still the issue with the fence. One of the reasons there's so little money that we would run out of the maintenance money that was that was a request is that we spent about $8,000 on Abe's cabin 5 or 6 years ago, when it was in serious trouble, and there were some trees that were pushing on it from the side, etc. So for me, the long-term thing we ought to do is commit as a town to having an annual budget that we use to help maintain the town. And I would encourage us to think how to organize that in such a way that it's used as an incentive for fundraising as well, so that we have a process and a program that maintains the heritage in the town. That's not a discussion for tonight, but for me, it's part of this whole issue because of the results I think we can see from the last few years. I'd be happy to hear what some of the elected people think.
So Larry, do you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to state there, because of the pandemic, I don't think budget's gonna be looking too favorable this coming year to be adding something like that in at that point at a high number. There are other avenues that we can pursue, like, where we are putting some other funds away. I think, they might be getting capped there, the one for, um, not the forest, but, can't think of the name of that fund. We're putting in, I don't know, 11,000 a year or something. I think that one's almost maxed out, and something like that may be capped off, and then you can run off and another one, start another fund. Because there's some funds that don't need to be added anymore in, and we don't seem to use them very much. And I think there's some ability maybe to create some other funds and going forward. Just another note too, Pierre Letourneau's, I'm sorry, we got a little mixed up on our times here. He's coming in from St. Albans, and him working in sticks and stuff. I know he can mention a little bit about the cost of this work right now, and all the supplies have doubled this fall, and we're hearing by the beginning of probably second or third quarter of next year, they should be going back down. So if you're getting some numbers this fall, I mean, just waiting another 6, 8, 10 months is going to drop that number down quite a bit.
Yeah. Oh,
Go ahead.
me?
Sam will call you, or Sam's the chair.
Cindy, go ahead, and then Matt has something to add too.
Me?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, Barnard, I can give you a copy of the presentation. I can also give you a copy of the estimate if you want. But Barnard put in $5,000 for market protection. And I never even heard of that before. So like I said, we have 2 years to do the project. So maybe the timing can work where, I mean, we're going to know in December. I don't know if that's too late to even talk about budgets. You can tell me that. But like I say, with 2 years, maybe we could come back once we know whether we're getting the grant and ask again, or you'll have a little more chance to get used to it or start a different fund, or I'm not sure when you do your budgeting.
Usually do it in the first of the year ish. Matt, you can add a little bit more to that if you'd like.
I just wanted to mention that Sean Kyle, our grants coordinator, has shared in the chat an additional grant that the Historical Society might take a look at, the Paul Brunn Historic Revitalization Grant. And Cindy, I can forward that information to you if that's helpful.
Yeah, I've got that. I'm not sure if we can use one grant to match another. That's something that I'd have to find out about. I looked at that today.
Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, just a thought, since this is a 2-year grant, I wonder if we kind of blend some of the ideas that have been talked about now, and there is the possibility to open up a line item where not 20,000 goes in, but maybe 10,000 or some other number that we think is manageable. And since it's 2 years with a grant and you already have some money in the Historical Society, it would essentially just replenish the expenses used on this project right now. So maybe that's a solution.
Cindy?
I agree with Heather, but I also think that both the town and the village should have a fund dedicated to maintenance and upkeep of all these buildings that the town owns, that is in the village, like the Opera House and the museum. I think there's something else too, but it seems to me that a small group of people seem to be responsible for trying to take care of these major projects. And I would think that it would be the responsibility of the town and the village to accommodate those.
John?
I would just say to, to both boards to be aware as you're talking about these kinds of issues and thinking about participation in them, you want to be aware of the double taxation issue, which has come up, repeatedly in years. And, there's sort of an agreement that has been made between the town and village so that you don't run into the double taxation issue where you have, village businesses and residents paying half of the town tax on something and then 100% of the village tax on something. So people in the village really end up paying for about 3/4 of whatever it is you're trying to make a joint venture on. And the town residents end up paying closer to around 1/4 of that, which isn't really very equitable, which is why, in these kinds of arrangements, like the Opera House, for example, it was, agreed a long time ago that those sorts of joint ventures would be taxed through the town, and then everybody is paying once equally to support whatever that venture is. So just, I bring that up, something to think about as you're, playing around with this in your mind and how to deal with it.
Thank you.
So there's already a existing line item for the town. That's a yearly thing, $1,000.
Yes, 3 years ago, at a society meeting, it came up that, we needed help, and we do an article that the voters vote on. We started, I think 3 or 4 years ago, we asked for $500. And then the last 2 times or 3 times, we asked for $1,000 and we're granted that to help us out some. But like I say, our maintenance money just is going one direction, down.
Did the contractor give you a timeline on how long the roof will last in its current condition?
In its current condition? No. I thought you meant how long the warranty would be, and I didn't ask about that either. But I think he did mention it. It didn't really sink in. It was 20 or 25 years. Maybe it's 30. I don't know. I can find out that. But I know this is a one-time project that will last. We won't have to do this again for another 20 or 30 years, depending on what the warranty is, if we do it right now. And I don't think we have any choice. We're all stuck with it. It's nobody's fault. But no, I'm not sure. But that's why I know the grant gives you 2 years to get the project done. So it's not, I don't think it's leaking, but it's not good at all.
Right. I'm just trying to think of the timing of this, and with COVID
Yeah.
and the surge in building material prices. And
right.
I'm not sure that it's the best time to be doing any contracting of any sort. But I'm just wondering if the roof can last a couple more years. Maybe we can set up funds, do some more fundraising, and come back to it when things have settled down.
Well, I had, I found out about the issue, had people look at it and realized it was fairly dire, even though I don't have a timeline when it's going to start leaking or anything. But everybody agrees it definitely needs to be done sooner than later. But one of the reasons I got going on it was because I had an opportunity to apply for this grant. So I got the balls rolling and got the estimate and stuff so we could apply for the grant. So if we get the grant, we're going to get 20,000 no matter what the bid is. If the bid comes in next time at $37,000, we're still getting, I think we're still going to get the 20. So that's all I can tell you. But certainly I will let you know when I know whether we got it or not, and that'll give us a lot more information to work with. But we definitely know that we're going to need some help.
And just to throw a little bit in about grants is if the Historical Society were awarded the grant and turned the grant down, it might interfere with their opportunity to apply for the grant and receive it again in the near future.
That's kind of why I was asking, because it feels like normally the process is, you know, you kind of secure the match before you apply for the grant so that you can accept it. And so that's why I was wondering, it seemed a little backwards. But and just a point of clarification, the money for the Historical Society is an appropriation and not a line. Not that could change easily, but just to clarify.
Yeah. We did have to have the money in hand to apply for the grant. So we looked at the 17,000 and said, we can take 3,000 out of the checking account and it would wipe us out, but at least we could apply for the grant. And I thought that was the most important thing. Yes, we can turn it down, but it was important enough to try to get $20,000 to help the, you know, the town or us, the village, the community out with $20,000 with the need. And I was pulling it together really. The estimate and stuff was 2 days before I submitted the grant. So it was a rush thing, but I think it was worth doing it that way as opposed to not getting anything and being further behind when we definitely had a need that I thought needed to be addressed. The sooner the better, like people said.
Or did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was in on discussions with Cindy at the time. I was then the treasurer. I no longer am, of the Historical Society. And we agreed, I thought it was worth doing, given the fundraising success we'd had with our members, we could afford to match their 20 and have something like $5,000 or $6,000 left in our checking account, which was not, it's moving towards broke if you don't do something about the maintenance and the whole stuff after that. But we decided, and I think we shared with the state that we had enough money on our books that we would guarantee to do this, and we would raise what we could beyond that so that we didn't go totally bankrupt. So I see us making, among our members and the rest of the town, a significant fundraising effort to finance this, and would look forward to having both of your groups help us along with that, both in doing the fundraising and matching or contributing in a significant way to solving it. I for one would thought that if we do get this grant, it's going to take some of my time and others over the next year and a half to make sure we pay for it, and there's still some money left in our accounts.
Dean, did you have something?
Yeah, if I can get my computer to work. I just, that 17,000 in the restoration fund, do you know, Cindy or Ward, do you guys know where that was raised from or came from?
Yes, yep. We had money left to us by Pat Stanley. I think everybody knows Pat Stanley. That lived on Main Elm Street. She left, and I've been trying to find out, but I know she left 30,000. I thought it was more, but we go back and we don't see anymore. So we think that she left $30,000. We've spent everything but the 17 on what is, what it was for. It was for maintenance. We don't have any problem spending the money for maintenance. That's what it was for. But we have to replenish, over the, if the roof is going to last 20 years, we have 20 years to start building up, another maintenance fund. Maybe some other people will leave us some money. I don't know. But like I say, this is what we were left, and we're trying to do the best we can.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I kind of agree with what Heather mentioned about, I mean, we probably need a fund going forward to take care of a lot of the buildings we have, but we also, I don't know that in these times, we can afford to have money sitting around in accounts, not
Mhm.
doing a lot. We probably need to utilize some of that money and then replenish it as we go forward.
And that's what we would plan on doing is
Yeah.
if we have to spend it. I mean, if we don't have a roof on the museum and the historic freight depot, it's going to quickly spoil the whole building. So we don't have any trouble spending the money on it, but we don't really have, you know, we can't wipe out the checking account too, or we wouldn't be able to even heat the museum with a new roof on it. But I think in small bites, you know, even small funds over 20 years add up. And I think that's what maybe needed to have happened in the past, but we can't go back. So we can make better decisions going forward to put little bits of money. Maybe the town can start a fund, even though it's not big at the beginning. And, you know, we'll work to fundraise back into our maintenance fund just so we can do all this for the community. That's what we're doing it for the future.
Larry?
Yeah, I just kind of want to go back to what I talked about before. It was a conservation fund, as I was talking about, that is almost maxed out, have to be revoted in. And when we talked with the Doughboy last year for funds for that, I'm like, well, we've got this fund right here with a lot of money. It'd be great if we could be able to access that. And I think something like that could be capped off, and then you could create this other fund that other historical societies, you know, the Opera House, whatever else needs a Doughboy. It's not going to hurt the taxpayer because it's still coming in at the same rate. I think BJ could look at that. I think it's on his last year of funding. Now, I mean, that conservation fund is great to have if we use it. And right now it's, you know, if we have a need for a lot of funds and that you got that much sitting there, you can probably replenish it over the years, but it's hard to tell the taxpayers, all right, we take all this money out and we're gonna put it here and not use it for 10 years. And so we need to have some sort of fund, like you guys were mentioning, to be able to have more of a grasp than just one or two little things in the area. You know, a needs fund.
Would you want to have each building have a separate fund? That way, not one of them's getting favored.
Are you asking me?
Or no, that was directed toward.
I think it just needs to be a fund easier to access, because the Doughboy came out of nowheres and we're like, wow, you know, we got a conservation fund. This is conserving, but it's a different type of conservation. So, you know, you can't change the verbiage around, but you got this huge fund that you can't pull out of. And I think we can still keep putting that same amount of money in and kind of, you know, that fund can be capped off and held. And then if there's need down the road to replenish it, we can look at it at that point, but it wouldn't hurt the taxpayers just keep rolling that same amount. And I think it's like $11,000 or $12,000 a year that goes into that fund. BJ could let me update us on that.
But that's an interesting point, Sam. Like, there has to be some kind of protocol so that you don't have one building that's in a big need just draining the fund, that it's spread equally, or at least access. So that's a good point. We'd have to definitely look at that.
It could be set up as like an internal grant system where the Historical Society puts in a grant for this, the Opera House puts in money for that, and it could be decided on by the select board or whoever was in charge of that fund.
Yeah, similarly, the conservation fund is a similar thing too. We can't just say, okay, we're going to pay it out. You have to have public meeting and stuff. And so there's a checkpoint where the funding doesn't just flow out by a few members saying, hey, that's a great thing or not. So definitely some checks and balances in the system.
That sounds like a pretty viable idea. So Cindy, Do you,
I just,
oh, sorry, Larry, go ahead.
I just want to make one more point.
Sure.
The Doughboy's been asked for another line item this year too. And I mean, you guys can ask, there's no hurt to ask us to add more in a line item or something, and we can look at it when we're going through our budgets. But like Dan Cunningham was saying, they're also doing a grant too, but they're not sure if they're gonna get it, and they wanted this money in the line item. And if they do get the grant, then they're gonna repay the town back. So, you know, there's things like that we can look forward at, you know, if there's money, we can, if it's more than what you need and the grant gives more, it should replenish it, you know, the fund backwards too. I'm sure there's some legal ways to do that, and not the point person on that.
Cindy?
I think it sounds, you know, like a good idea to have a fund for like historical buildings or whatever you want to call the fund. It's sort of like the school we always had when I was on the school board, and ever since, we always had I think it was a land acquisition. And so when we were able to buy land for the soccer fields and whatever, we had most of the money there. So I think that makes sense. The other thing is, I don't know if that's what Larry was referring to. I think you said line item, but what would it be a good idea to just put it in as an article for a couple years? Maybe ask for 5,000, you know, this year and 5,000 next year, and then, you know, at least be that far along. I guess it's up to the board whether they want to, you know, start a fund this year for historic projects. Maybe just kind of generalize it for historic projects. It could cover the Doughboy or the buildings, or maybe like say you decide to tear down the town clerk's office. You know, I mean, something that's unforeseen. Maybe you could use the money for that. But that's really up to you folks. I'll stay on. I'm gonna stay on for the recreation part anyways. So I don't know whether you want to make any decision now or whether you do that afterwards.
Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention, that's how the conservation fund got created. It was a request, a line item request, and voted at town meeting to be put in. So that's, I mean, I don't know if you would specifically ask it just for historical, or if there'd be, you know, multiple buildings that there would have to be some thought on it, but I think we've got till the end of January to come up with verbiage and stuff to put in something like that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's like municipally owned buildings that are operated by local entities.
Mhm.
We're looking at.
And if it's an article, don't you have to petition? You have to get a petition versus a line item, you don't. So
Right.
if you wanted
Right.
it, you'd have, right. I mean, this
Yeah.
year, I think they changed the petition rules, but I think typically you'd have to petition it. If you just come to the town and ask for a line item, you don't.
Yeah. I think a line item, you know, I think a line item is needed by what I'm hearing from other, you know, nonprofits that are trying to keep these things going on their own. They need a little bit of help from the owners, from the municipality. So it seems like it's kind of overdue to have, like, as I said, if we had started this 10 years ago, it wouldn't be an issue. So maybe start, you know, with a reasonable amount, and over a couple of years, next thing you know, you're able to help. You know, we're a really small nonprofit.
I was actually related to this same topic. Susie mentioned something in the chat, and I was just hoping maybe Susie, you could bring that up.
I can. The conversation around municipally owned buildings and being occupied by nonprofit entities some who have building knowledge, some who don't, looking at the cost of various things that are also in the line, such as groundskeeping, etc. It just seems like because they are such historic pieces, and sometimes these projects can be seen coming 5 and 10 years out, that if we had a facilities person who could do minor repairs, do the groundskeeping, so you could fund part of that with that line, and then also be aware of the projects coming up, get those things on the radar, particularly of our development and Sean's position. And then Sean would see them and know that they're sitting there. And if a grant opportunity came up, he could jump on it to preserve these historic pieces that a lot of money have already been put in. At the Opera House, we rely on our board, and sometimes we have someone really knowledgeable in a building, and sometimes we don't. So if you had a dedicated, and it would include the town and village offices as well. There's property, vested property that is owned by the two entities, that if you had a facilities person going around doing the furnace cleaning, changing filters, making sure that all the proper fire and alarm, whatever, are inspected when they should be, the emergency services building, it's always falling on somebody's back. Pierre tries to help us out if he's around, but if you had a dedicated person that covered all of them, it just seems like it might work better, and also could maybe be as a preventive measure on some big projects that maybe if we had seen ahead of time, we could have tackled, and they wouldn't be so big.
Susie, if I can weigh in a couple points on that. So the village actually employs a director of public works who's in charge of property. But if it's a village owned or town owned structure and it's being leased by a certain group, we may run into some trouble with that, depending on who is in charge or responsible of maintenance. And then the third thing, I think hiring a new position, say with a $50,000+ salary a year, it would kind of make more sense fiscally to just give the money to whoever needs it.
Well, I don't know what there is in the grounds line. I just look at that as something that you're expending out on across different properties. And I know with the Opera House, it's owned by both the village and the town. I don't know about the other properties. And the lease has pretty much been a goodwill lease. I don't know of anyone paying rent to the town for these buildings or a formal lease agreement. So I hear what you're saying, but I wonder if there's a workaround. I don't know, maybe.
I think what Susie is talking about, from what I've experienced in other organizations, there's definitely, it makes a lot of sense. Not sure if that's a position is not something I think that we can really be looking at this fiscal year, but maybe in years going forwards, consideration like that consideration for the buildings that somebody is really paying attention to. Just thinking about in the Northern Mountain Valley Supervisory Union, they hired a facilities manager partially for this, to be able to see what these projects are and take care of things in house, and keep the expenses down for building maintenance. Something, so there's definitely merit to what Susie's saying, but
Absolutely.
financially right now,
Yes.
Yeah,
might not be
just
for
keep
this
it in
year.
mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to try to keep things moving for tonight, we're about a half hour over on our next agenda item. So going forward, Cindy, did you want to see if you are awarded that grant? And at that point, if you are, then we can, it's much more of a time pressing thing. Did you want to get back to us with results?
Yes, I definitely will get back to you. They said December, I'm not sure when. Keep our fingers crossed that we get $20,000 worth of help. And that is, this all, we're talking about maintenance, and certainly this falls in that category. And like I said, I had no idea when I came on board, and I feel really good that I've got the details on how to get the maintenance plan done for the freight depot, but it looks like this is going to be the only big thing we're gonna need. I mean, it's gonna outlive some of us. So definitely I'll get back, and I'm sure that this will all work out with your help.
Can
And
I
thanks
just
for
put in a-
having me.
Can I just put in a plug too, because I was talking with Sean, and since I have all of the entities here, we have asked our departments to maybe come up with a 1 year, a 3 year, and a 5 year plan as far as like grants, kind of looking ahead. What are the things you'd like? And that way Sean can keep his eye out for things. So if each entity, Opera House, right, Historical Society, if each entity could kind of get together and think about those plans, that would help immensely. So just wanted to plug that.
Yeah, and I wonder if like multiple entities can apply for a single grant if it's applied through the municipality. Just a thought.
I know some you have to be a municipality and some you can't. So,
Right.
I mean, obviously that would be one consideration.
Right.
Okay, if that's it for the Historical Society portion, thank you, Cindy. We will move on to Enosburg Recreation Committee report with Yvonne Kyle, the Rec Department Director.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm here to talk about the Rec Fields project. I'm actually here on behalf of the steering committee that's working on the Parks project. So first, I just wanted to give a quick little history on this project. I know you guys deal with different projects all the time. So just a reminder, this whole thing started because we were awarded the municipal planning grant in 2019 to revitalize the Enosburg recreation fields. And this plan was finalized in the spring of this year. In the summer, we were finally able to get together with our steering committee again and kind of start working on this project again. Since the plan was approved in the spring, it's already been adopted by the select board. And we've actually also presented it to different organizations in the community, including the trustees. So I know some of you have seen this already. We've actually made a lot of great progress. It's a small group of us that have been working on this so far, including Matt Miner. I know you're on the call, so feel free to jump in if you think I forget anything from the call. But so far, we've actually already even started a project website. The link is parkforall.com, and we've started to promote the link to the community. We have a catchy website. Hopefully people will remember it. But in the website, you can find out our progress, everything we're working on, and there's also an option for donations. Considering the size and the major cost of this project for the Enosburg recreation fields, we've decided to start tackling smaller portions of the project. And you can see this in our website too. We've started working on small things such as the Gaga pit. I don't know if you guys have seen on our Facebook page. We actually promoted some of that. We got some of the community members to come out and help us build this. We had some donations from the community and from Rice VT to help us put it together, to buy the supplies. We've also selected a few other things that we felt are doable for us to do right away, like work on the community garden, maybe plant some trees that are also part of the plan. But we're also looking at bigger parts of the project. So starting with phase A of the plan, which really focuses on improvements to the walking track and the soccer field. Oh, thank you for pulling up the website, Matt. So if you go to where it says master plan, if you click on that, you should be able to see the actual master plan, yeah. And we can scroll to phase A. So looking at phase A, because we are looking at grant opportunities and ways to tackle the big parts of the project. So we are looking at phase A. This is the first part of it. And it's also the most used part of the field. You know, the schools and in the community, you know, they all use the fields for different things, and the walking path. So when we break down the costs of phase A, we realized, and the cost, by the way, is around $185,000. That's about the cost of just working on phase A. But when we took a closer look at it, we realized that a lot of the costs are really just labor costs. And I'm not an expert in this, and I, you know, we're not, you know, experts in our group, but things like demolition and deconstruction, site preparation and earthwork, a lot of these costs seem like they're labor related. So this is where we come to you guys for support on this. We wanted to see if we were allowed, if it would be okay with you guys, for us to reach out to your highway people to see if they would have the time and ability to help us tackle some of these things next year. This would really bring down the cost, and you know, we can use it as part of a grant that we apply to in the future, or you know, maybe the cost will be so much less that we could just, you know, raise the money with the community. But it can be overwhelming to look at this whole plan because it's huge, and you know, there's a lot of cost involved. But if we tackle it together as a community and use all our resources, it might seem more doable. And Matt, if you scroll down, maybe we can see a little bit of what phase A shows. So as you can see, phase A is $186,000. But if you look at some of the costs, the breakdown of the costs, it looks like things that could be doable by, you know, some of the staff that the village and the town has. And maybe even if we reach out to people in the community that do some of these things, we might get, you know, volunteers or maybe discounts to get these things done. But first, we wanted to reach out to you guys to see if it would be okay for us to do that, to talk to your highway people about it, see what they could do.
There could be some in-kind services provided. I know the village doesn't have a whole lot of earthworking equipment, but we have a couple trucks and some manpower, and I'm sure that something could be.
Yeah, I would just say I can't speak for the town, but on the village's end, I know everybody thinks we have like this super huge crew that does incredible work, and we do have some very talented folks, but there are limitations, and a lot of what you're suggesting, Yvonne, are things that, I mean, we wouldn't even do for ourselves. We would hire out to a private contractor to come in and do, because, you know, we're not landscapers. You know, and we have actually very limited equipment in the village. Maybe the town has more along that type of work scope, but in the village, you know, we actually have very limited landscaping type of equipment that could even be available. But our guys are pretty busy all year long too. They aren't sitting on their hands ever. They've got work, you know, that they have to take care of that is village-owned property. And, you know, I don't know, as Sam said, there might be some time that could be made available, but I don't know, we'd have to discuss it again. It's tight, I know, on the village's end.
Is there someone from the town that wants to weigh in on that?
If I can find, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a possibility there, but you know, Jonathan kind of hit it on the nail there on the head. It's dependent on, you know, what the crew is doing at certain times, because this past year that COVID really handcuffed us in the spring's work, and We didn't get a lot of the flood work done that was done from last Halloween. And I don't know how Joey's, caught up on that. So there might be some time, but I don't know how much time. And I think Joey's actually listening in right now, and if he wants to chime in on, he can.
Ooh, Joey, I think you're muted.
About now.
There.
We can hear you.
Hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. No, it's a lot like Jonathan said, we've got our own work to do. Yeah, I mean, there could be some times we could, lend some trucking or maybe some equipment work, but again, we have a lot of our own stuff to get done, and a lot of times these little side projects like this kind of tie your hands as to getting your own work done, or something that has a deadline, like some of the FEMA work. A lot of time you have a deadline to get the work done by. So, yeah, it's possible some of it, but it looks to me like with the plans, it looks like some pretty major construction there. It looks like parking areas. And I know it's going to happen in different phases, but yeah, probably something that would have to be looked at and discussed and see what our abilities really would be to build to do some of that work.
Okay, well, I mean, we realize it's hard to, I guess, determine all this in a call, but if we could look at it a little closer, I mean, maybe it's not something that happens right away, but it's something that at least you guys are aware of, and if we don't know what could come from it. I mean, if we could still maybe share it with your people or with you guys, just to take a look at it. I know, Joey, you're already helping us a little bit with the Gaga pit. That's kind of in progress, but it's been delayed because of the weather.
Right.
And that's where the idea came from. We're like, oh, great, this park is part of the town and the village, and it'll be a great asset for everybody. And it would be great if we all can participate or help out in that way. But no, I completely understand, and I don't know, do you guys suggest that we do that? That maybe you guys do take a closer look at it, or what do you guys think?
I wonder if it's worth just like when you're close to a project, maybe then saying this is what we need done, and then see if the village or the town has the capacity to help out at that moment with that particular project.
Well, we are taking on smaller projects right now, but if we want to work on phase A, that would be that's the first part of tackling on the big parts. And I believe, I mean, this is all new to us. I feel like it's, kind of engineering and stuff. But I feel it's, we would have to tackle it all together. I don't know how we could do portions of this. I mean, there are some portions that we are trying, like, for example, the tree planting. That is part of phase A. But some of this stuff like deconstruction and demolition, I mean, I don't know if we can do that in parts without making a big mess and then leaving it there for a few months or weeks. But again, it's not something that I'm very knowledgeable with. Any guidance would be helpful.
I think almost like you need to get probably summer. Hopefully we can have meetings where you basically get the plans, maybe pull the crews and say, this is what I need. And they can either say yay or nay, like, yep, this is something we can do, or nope, we can't do it. But I think if you have the plans, you're there scoping out the scene, I think that might be better.
Matt, did you have something to add?
Yeah, if I could contribute, as Yvonne said, I also participate in this steering committee. I think the hope was just to be able to brainstorm a little bit. with folks who know a little bit more about construction process than the steering committee does. Just to sit down, take a look at the plan, say, are there any parts of it that can be done at all with internal resources? And then kind of figure out and work around people's schedules about when that might be able to be scheduled. So we're not really asking for any commitments right now so much as the opportunity to talk with the two departments to see if there's any areas of the project where we might be able to use in-kind services.
I think definitely we would need some more specific information, or have somebody, like Matt said, take a look at it, that is familiar with that type of work. Larry?
Yeah, I'd like to add that it's definitely for the town guys, they're gonna be tied up at least till mid-June or so anyways, because it's, all the back roads and stuff and ditches. So you're looking at probably July, probably a 6-week period in there that they may be able to put some hours in, and that's the whole thing we need to assess, is how many hours are going to be needed for this project if it's going to get done this year. And going into it, I'm sure we can do some in-kind service, but it's going to be limited on certain weeks, and depending on how the weather plays out too.
Just to clarify, this is a major phase of the project, and I don't think anybody expects it to be done in the next 12 months. And this summer may not produce a lot of movement, but maybe the next year things are a little less hectic and we have more capacity. So just an opportunity to brainstorm. That's all.
Yep, just getting the ball rolling. Getting everybody aware of what the project is, and how they can contribute, and if they have the time and the ability to help. I'm hoping that if word gets out, even people that have their own business in town can contribute somehow too. So you guys are kind of like the first step in us tackling this part of it. So.
An exciting project.
So again, I guess the question was, would it be okay for us to, I guess, we're not expecting anything quick, whenever your people have time to kind of meet with us and brainstorm. We know they're busy and they have other things to work on, but whenever they do have a minute to meet with us and kind of see how they can help, if they can help.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I'm always looking, save $1 where we can for sure. And, get a game plan going ahead there. And hopefully in the spring, we're going to be hopefully able to meet a little bit more central instead of through these computers. Because I don't know how your reception is tonight, but a lot of this, I don't know if it's my end, but everybody keeps breaking out, so you don't hear the whole discussion all the time either. But definitely, I think for the select board, I have no problem at all sitting down, trying to game plan.
Dean?
Yeah, just, I don't, without refreshing, going through this whole part of the project, if you're like through some of these slow times, I didn't know if there was things that people could do if you needed fill or anything like that, or if sometimes some of these people are looking for places to get rid of fill too, if you could work at that, or like if they continue with projects across the road or something, if they needed places to get rid of stuff, if that would help out with some of the stuff that's going on with your project. Just a thought to think about, or other people, earth moving people or whatever, that sometimes have slow times where they'll do things cheaper or need to get rid of material in places if you were needing to fill, or even maybe some topsoil, probably not so much, but maybe some of these guys might need places to get rid of it.
Yeah, and I think that's where the whole community comes in. I mean, if you know anyone that, if you want to look at the plan and know of anybody that you think could contribute in another way and share with us, or ask them for us, it's up to you. And that's I can imagine a project this size. That's kind of the only way we're going to make it happen, if everybody participates, even though it's rec started with it. I think it's really everybody's project. It's a park for everyone. So
Okay, did anybody else have anything to add or any more questions? Is that all you had, Yvonne?
yep, that's it.
Okay, thank you for coming in.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. We'll sit down this winter there and look at the plans there a little bit closer with you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, up next is other business. Does anybody have any other business before we go into executive? Hearing none and seeing no hands, I will hear a motion from the trustees to enter executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations in which premature public knowledge may compromise the position of the municipalities.
I motion we go into executive session.
Me with the first, have a second?
I'll second.
Jason with the second. All those in favor of entering executive say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Larry, I think we need one from your board too.
Okay, I'll entertain any motions to go in executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations in which premature public knowledge may compromise the position of municipalities.
I'll move to go into executive session for the select board.
I had a motion by Dean Wright and seconded by Polly Rico. Any more discussion? Have none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Is Pierre on? No?
Doesn't look it.
Okay, so it's unanimous, aye. We'll go into executive. He
Who's
was
the
gonna try to get, that's Joey.
Oh, no, Joey's over there at the garage. There's a town of Enosburg at the bottom.
Oh, iPad 2?
Yeah.
Right there. I think that's Pierre. I could be wrong.
It probably is. You're muted, Pierre.
And your video's off, if you are Pierre.
Just a technical point. I will open the break room for executive session, and you'll receive an invitation to move into the break room. You can just accept that, and then we'll reconvene.
Okay. Pierre, you're. Fancy new iPad from the town tonight. So boy, I'm a little waving right now. I didn't have a profit on yet.
Sam, you may want to take a new roll call.
Okay, it looks like everyone made it out of executive, except for.
I think we totally lost Pierre.
Pierre, yeah, I think Pierre's gone. Okay, so from the village, we have Cindy.
Here.
Jason.
Here.
Heather.
Here.
Leonard.
Here.
Does
the town, myself, Larry, Dean.
Here.
Polly.
Here.
And Pierre's out in cloud 9.
Yeah, I think we lost Pierre. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay, there was no action taken in executive. If there's no other business for tonight's joint meeting, I'll hear a motion to adjourn. Do we need two separate motions?
I was gonna say, I motion to adjourn and go to the trustee general meeting.
Okay, Cindy, the first, I have a second.
I'll second.
Jason with the second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, it's unanimous. And from the select board?
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second.
Polly Rico made a motion to move. Dean Wright seconded. Any more discussion? Have none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone who say nay? We have unanimous ayes. So I guess that's it for us tonight.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much for meeting with us, guys.
Same. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy
Thank you.